Why do people remember a Nike advertisement years after they have forgotten the shoe it was promoting? That question reveals something unusual about one of the world's most recognizable sports brands. Nike sells footwear apparel and athletic equipment. Its products compete on design, performance, comfort, price, and innovation. Yet many of its most influential campaigns spend surprisingly little time explaining those features. Instead, they focus on ambition, pressure, failure, sacrifice, the moment someone decides to keep going. That is a strange choice in a market built around physical products. The common assumption is that effective advertising should make the product easier to evaluate. A running shoe should be sold through cushioning, weight, durability, or speed. A basketball shoe should be sold through grip support and performance. The clearer the benefit, the stronger the advertisement should be. Nike often does something different. Its stories rarely begin with the shoe. They begin with the person wearing it. An athlete preparing for a defining moment. A competitor returning after defeat. An ordinary person attempting something that feels beyond reach. The product is still present, but it is not always the center of attention. It becomes part of a larger story about identity, discipline, courage, and personal possibility. This approach has been repeated for decades. The athletes change. The sports change. The cultural context changes, but the role of the brand remains remarkably consistent. Nike appears at the point where effort becomes meaningful. It connects itself not only with winning, but with the decision to try before the outcome is known. That continuity matters. A single emotional advertisement can generate attention. It can win awards. It can create conversation for a few weeks. But Nike has built something broader than a collection of successful campaigns. It has created a communication system in which new stories reinforce older ones. The phrase "just do it" can support a professional champion, a first-time runner, a controversial public figure, or a child entering a competition. The characters are different, but the underlying message remains recognizable. Each story adds another layer to the same idea. This creates an important business question. If emotional storytelling does not directly explain why one shoe performs better than another, why has Nike relied on it so consistently? And why has this approach been so difficult for competitors to match? Other brands can hire famous athletes. They can produce cinematic advertisements. They can tell stories about determination and success. They can use many of the same creative techniques. But copying the surface of a Nike campaign is not the same as reproducing what the campaign achieves. The real advantage may not come from emotion alone. It may come from the way repeated stories shape what the brand means, how consumers remember it, and what they believe they are choosing when they buy its products. To understand that, we have to look beyond the advertisements themselves. We have to examine how Nike turned storytelling from a creative style into a marketing engine. To see why this approach became so powerful, it helps to understand the market Nike was competing in. Athletic footwear has always been an industry where technical advantages are difficult to keep for long. Better cushioning can be imitated. Lighter materials eventually become available to competitors. Manufacturing techniques spread. Even breakthrough designs rarely remain exclusive forever. Every major sportswear company invests heavily in research and development because innovation matters. But innovation alone rarely guarantees lasting differentiation. Consumers do not choose running shoes solely by comparing laboratory measurements. They compare brands that often deliver excellent products, similar price ranges, and endorsements from world-class athletes. That creates a different competitive challenge. When product quality across leading brands becomes increasingly comparable, companies have to compete for something beyond functional performance. They have to compete for meaning. Nike understood this earlier than many of its rivals. Rather than treating marketing as the final step after product development, the company gradually built marketing into the core of how consumers experience the brand. Products remained essential, but they became part of a much larger narrative. The athlete was never simply demonstrating a shoe. The athlete became the story. This distinction appears throughout Nike's communication over several decades. Whether the campaign featured Michael Jordan redefining basketball culture, Serena Williams overcoming expectations, Eliud Kipchoge pursuing the limits of human endurance, or ordinary people taking their first steps toward personal goals, the central theme remained remarkably consistent. Achievement was important, But the journey toward achievement mattered even more. That consistency was not accidental. Nike describes one of its long-term strategic priorities as creating deeper and more personal connections with consumers, while delivering distinctive products and experiences across every market. The company does not separate brand building from business growth. Instead, it treats emotional connection as part of the value consumers receive alongside physical performance. This philosophy also explains why many Nike campaigns rarely feel like traditional product demonstrations. Instead of asking viewers to admire technology, they invite viewers to imagine themselves inside the story. The brand does not simply promise better athletic performance. It suggests participation in a mindset built around perseverance, self-belief, and continuous improvement. That subtle shift changes the role of marketing. Instead of answering the question, "Why is this shoe better?" the communication increasingly answers another question: "Who could I become if I embraced the values this brand represents?" At first glance, this may appear similar to what many competitors attempt today. Adidas, Under Armour, Puma, and numerous emerging brands also work with elite athletes, produce emotionally engaging films, and invest heavily in brand storytelling. Yet despite using many of the same creative tools, few have achieved the same long-term consistency in consumer perception. The difference cannot be explained simply by celebrity endorsements or larger advertising budgets. Those resources are important, but they are available to multiple global companies. Something else has allowed Nike to reinforce the same emotional associations across generations without making every campaign feel repetitive. Understanding that difference requires looking beyond creative execution and examining how individual campaigns became parts of a much larger system rather than isolated marketing events. That system began to reveal its full strength when Nike faced moments where the safest commercial decision would have been very different from the one it ultimately chose. That larger system became most visible when Nike encountered moments that carried genuine commercial risk. One of the clearest examples came in 2018. Nike launched the campaign Dream Crazy, narrated by Colin Kaepernick at the time. Kaepernick had become one of the most polarizing figures in American sports after protesting racial injustice during the national anthem. For many companies, associating with such a controversial figure would have appeared to be an unnecessary business risk. The immediate public reaction reflected exactly that concern. Some consumers praised the campaign. Others organized boycotts. Videos of people burning Nike products spread across social media. From a traditional advertising perspective, this looked dangerous. Why would a company voluntarily divide public opinion instead of promoting the performance of its newest products? The answer becomes clearer when the campaign is viewed as part of a communication system rather than an isolated advertisement. The central message was not about Colin Kaepernick himself, nor was it about a particular shoe. It was about commitment to a belief even when the personal cost is high. That theme was entirely consistent with decades of Nike storytelling centered on perseverance, sacrifice, and pursuing difficult goals despite uncertainty. In other words, the campaign did not introduce a new identity for Nike. It reinforced an identity the company had been building for years. The business outcome was equally revealing. According to data from Edison Trends, online sales of Nike products increased by 31% during the days following the campaign compared with the same period 1 year earlier. While short-term sales never tell the entire story, they challenged the assumption that emotional controversy necessarily destroys commercial performance. The campaign also received another important form of validation. FE Worldwide, an organization that evaluates marketing based on measurable business effectiveness rather than creative quality alone, later recognized Dream Crazy as the most effective marketing campaign in the world. That distinction matters because it shifts the discussion away from artistic storytelling and toward business results. Nike's own financial behavior points in the same direction. Year after year, the company continues to invest enormous resources in what it describes as demand creation, a category that includes brand marketing alongside sports marketing and consumer engagement. Even during periods when management has focused intensely on operational improvements, Nike has continued emphasizing the importance of strengthening the brand through major campaigns and global sporting events rather than reducing those investments. That persistence suggests a deeper conviction inside the business. Nike is not treating storytelling as an optional layer added after the product is finished. It is treating storytelling as infrastructure. Every campaign contributes to a larger network of associations that has been accumulating for decades. Each new athlete reinforces previous athletes. Each new challenge reinforces earlier stories of determination. Each new advertisement strengthens meanings that consumers already connect with the brand. Seen this way, the success of a campaign is not measured only by how many people remember it. Its real value lies in how much it strengthens everything that came before it. That raises an even more important question. If individual campaigns are merely adding another layer to an existing system, then perhaps the true source of Nike's advantage is not the emotional stories themselves, but the economic effect created when those stories accumulate over time. The pattern becomes much easier to understand once we stop thinking of Nike's campaigns as advertisements and start thinking of them as investments. That distinction changes almost everything. Traditional product advertising is designed to influence a purchase decision today. It explains why one product performs better, costs less, or offers more value than another. Its success is often measured through immediate sales or short-term campaign performance. Nike is certainly capable of doing that, but its most recognizable campaigns are accomplishing something different at the same time. They are building an asset. Every story about perseverance, resilience, ambition, or personal growth strengthens a set of associations that consumers already connect with the brand. Those associations do not disappear when the campaign ends. Instead, they become part of the mental framework people use the next time they encounter the Nike logo, enter a Nike store, or compare products online. This is where emotional storytelling begins to produce measurable economic value. Imagine two running shoes with similar quality, similar technology, and similar prices. If one of those shoes immediately activates years of positive memories, admired athletes, cultural moments, and personal aspirations, the comparison is no longer based only on physical characteristics. The product carries additional perceived value that competitors cannot easily manufacture. That accumulated value is what marketers describe as brand equity. Importantly, brand equity is not created by emotion alone. It is created by consistent meaning repeated over long periods of time. An emotional campaign that contradicts everything a company previously represented usually creates confusion rather than loyalty. Nike avoided that trap by maintaining remarkable consistency. Whether the campaign featured Olympic champions, basketball legends, marathon runners, or everyday athletes, the underlying message remained recognizable. Individual stories changed, but the role of the brand inside those stories rarely did. That consistency explains why competitors often struggle even when they imitate the visible elements. They can produce cinematic films. They can sign famous athletes. They can use inspirational music and emotional narration. What they cannot instantly reproduce is decades of accumulated meaning already stored in consumers' minds. That accumulated meaning creates business advantages beyond advertising itself. It can increase spontaneous brand recall. It can influence which products consumers place on their shortlist before comparing specifications. It can support stronger pricing power because purchasing decisions become less dependent on functional comparisons alone. It can also make consumers more willing to remain loyal even when competing products appear technically comparable. Independent evaluations illustrate this distinction. Brand Finance continued to rank Nike among the world's strongest apparel brands in 2025, giving it one of the highest brand strength index scores in the industry. Yet during the same period, Nike reported declining annual revenue as the company worked through inventory challenges, competitive pressure, and strategic adjustments. Those two facts are not contradictory. They demonstrate that a powerful brand is a valuable business asset, but not a substitute for operational execution. Storytelling cannot compensate indefinitely for weaker product cycles, distribution issues, or changing consumer preferences. Instead, it amplifies the value created by a business that continues delivering on its promises. Viewed from this perspective, Nike's campaigns were never simply designed to make audiences feel inspired. They were designed to steadily increase the economic value attached to the brand itself. The emotional response was important, but it was not the destination. It was the mechanism through which an intangible business asset became stronger with every consistent story the company told. That distinction ultimately explains why the same type of campaign can generate admiration for many brands, yet create a much more durable competitive advantage for only a few. Seen as a whole, Nike's success tells a very different story from the one many marketers assume. The company did not become difficult to compete with because it learned how to make more emotional advertisements. It became difficult to compete with because it transformed storytelling into a long-term business asset. Every campaign contributed to something larger than its own performance. Every athlete added another chapter. Every moment of perseverance reinforced the same set of values. Every new generation inherited meanings that had already been built over decades. That accumulation is what makes the system so powerful. A competitor can reproduce a successful commercial. It can even reproduce the visual style, the music, the pacing, and the emotional tone. What it cannot reproduce overnight is the network of associations that consumers have gradually attached to Nike through thousands of consistent interactions. Those associations influence purchasing decisions in ways that are often invisible. They shape which brands consumers remember first. They influence which products feel trustworthy before any specifications are compared. They make premium pricing feel more reasonable because customers believe they are purchasing something beyond the physical product itself. In that sense, Nike is not replacing product quality with emotion. It is increasing the value consumers perceive in a high-quality product by connecting it to identity, aspiration, and personal meaning. The business evidence also reminds us where the limits are. Nike's financial results during fiscal year 2025 showed that even one of the world's strongest brands can experience declining revenue when product momentum, distribution strategy, and competitive execution face pressure. A powerful brand does not eliminate operational challenges. Instead, it gives a company a stronger foundation from which to recover. That distinction is important because it separates branding from mythology. Emotional storytelling is not a shortcut that allows companies to ignore product innovation or execution. It works only when the promises embedded in the story continue to be supported by real products, real experiences, and consistent decisions. When those elements reinforce one another, storytelling stops being an advertising technique. It becomes part of the company's economic infrastructure. Looking back, the most valuable thing Nike has been selling was never just footwear. The shoes have always mattered. They are the proof that the company can deliver performance. But the stories surrounding those products changed what the products represented inside the minds of consumers. That is why the same pair of shoes can become more than leather, foam, and rubber. It becomes a symbol of persistence, a reminder of possibility, a reflection of the person the customer believes they are becoming. That is far more difficult to copy than a new cushioning system or a new manufacturing process. The real competitive advantage was never hidden inside a single advertisement. It was built patiently, one story at a time, until those stories became an intangible asset with measurable economic value. Perhaps that is the most important way to understand Nike. The company does not simply market products with emotion. It uses emotion to build a brand that makes its products worth more than the materials from which they are made.